It's your old pal HarleyTrek. I had a channel comment recently asking about my motovlogging setup. And I know that when I started, I searched YouTube from one end to the other, looking for examples of how other motovloggers set up their rigs, what cameras they buy, what equipment, what mounts, how they get the sound, the whole shoot match. And I've commented in motovlogs before about my setup, and when I was getting into it, I didn't want to invest a ton of money into the GoPros and the Cenas and the backpacks and the Bluetooth and all that. I didn't even know if I'd stick with it for any length of time. So I didn't want to go super cheap either. So I opted for a good middle-of-the-road camera. It does shoot 1080 at 60 frames per second. Now I believe that when I bought this camera, it didn't shoot in 60 frames per second, but there was since a firmware update that enabled that capacity, and I've been really happy with it. And it does take good video. The camera that I chose was the Sony Action Cam. This model is the HDR AS15. It is a vertical standing camera. It's not your typical square. It does have built-in Wi-Fi. And I've been really happy with it. For iOS and Android, you can connect to the camera and use it as a viewfinder. A little pain, but you do have that option. It does have an LCD for menu navigation, but there's nothing built into it for being able to see what's actually on the screen. Of course, with the shape of this camera, you're pretty limited in how you're going to mount it to a helmet. You can go up top for the mohawk look. Didn't work for me. I wanted more of a personal experience when I shot my videos. So the camera comes with a waterproof case. I think it's waterproof to 10 feet, 9 meters. I don't plan on taking it underwater. I didn't pay that much attention to it. And an assortment of mounts, sticky mounts, curved for helmet, flat, whatever. But it just wasn't going to work for a motovlogging setup. So, here's my helmet. This is a VCan B310. Excuse me, that's a B136. Having troubles with numbers tonight, it would appear. Nice comfortable helmet. Does not have integrated sun shield or thing, but this was not an expensive helmet. This was like 150 bucks. It does have VCan's version of Bluetooth, blink integrated. It's okay. When I bought this helmet, I bought it, I was riding the Sportster, which of course don't have stereo, so it would pair with my phone and play music, and I could answer phone calls and things of that nature. Since I've gotten the Ultra Classic, I don't use the Bluetooth. The Bluetooth is not intercompatible with other brands like a Sena or a Scala or anything like that. So unless you've got another blink and they're pretty much sent behind you, this Bluetooth is useless. But that's not what I bought it for. Well, that was what I bought it for. I just said that. Anyway, so I do have on the side here the curved mount that came with the camera. Now the curve of this helmet is such that only the sides will stick, and the flat was too flat. And there's one of my early motovlogs that I was riding along, and this actually came loose and fell off the helmet, and if it hadn't been for the microphone cable, the camera would have gone bouncing down the road. There are options that Sony offers, of course also separately. This is their skeleton case. So I bought that, and it was not cheap. I think it was about 30 bucks. And then in between here is the Sony brand for the Action Cam. an adjustable swiveling, basically a tripod mount. So this case has a slip lock right there, and it folds open. Now this attachment point, let's see if I can get that in there real good. This attachment point here will pop out and go on either side, so you do have left-right mounting options. So I had to go on the left because, or excuse me, the right, because the left has got this business in the way, and I just in my way. So take the camera, flip that open. Your bottom door has to be open, but that's not a concern because, well, this thing ain't waterproof. So if it starts to rain, you better get over quick and get this thing off the helmet. It just fits in there like that. Close the door, slide the lock back, and there you are. Just like that. Now, when I was researching this mount, there were some reviews that indicated it worked great until they hit a bump and this little latch opened up and their camera went screaming. So to combat that issue, I just take a little elastic band and I just wrap it around that way. It's got enough tension to where, actually I'll do that twice, but it creates enough tension that were this to move, this door would not fly open and you wouldn't lose your camera. I've not had a problem with this thing wanting to slide open. Every time I've finished riding, I've gotten off and this thing is locked exactly where I put it. So maybe it's a bit of overkill, I don't know, but cheap insurance is cheap insurance. For the microphone, this does have a built-in mic, useless for a motovlog, of course. So I bought, and most all of you have used them at one time or another, just a cheap 3.5mm plug. There is a mic out plug here. You just pop it in, click, and you just stick it up here, wind it around, and I mount, and I apologize if I don't see this, but I stick it, I take a piece of painter's tape, which I have to replace fairly often. Yep, I'm going to have to replace it, but I put the microphone right there. You know, for the timbre of my voice to overcome the sound of the motorcycle. And thanks for all the compliments on the sound of my bike. I lucked out big time with the exhaust that came on that bike. I've not heard another one that sounds like her, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But for my voice to overcome that when I'm at speed, I've just about got to be swallowing this thing. Maybe, I'm sure there are better mics out there. But again, you know, the two mic, it came in a 2-pack. It was less than $10. So, you know, if these go out, it's cheap to buy more. You can take this rig completely off if you want to, if you're going to use the helmet without the motovlog setup on it. Personally, I wear a half helmet when I'm not motovlogging, but it's very easy to pop out. Just squeeze the tabs and slide it out, and the whole rig is free. Squeeze and pop it right back in, and there you have it. So when I bought this camera, there was a newer model out. I know I paid less than $200 for it, brand new on Amazon. I think they were running a clearance because the new model had come out. And $30 for the skeleton case. I think another $10 for this mount. I bought it at Best Buy. Best Buy has it is a fairly good resource for Action Cam accessories. They carry pretty much the whole Action Cam setup, the line, if you will. So you can. I've used them for quick supplies. Like I had to have an extra battery once. They've got the batteries. Pricey, yes, but sometimes you can't wait for Amazon's 2-day shipping. And I've been very happy with it. You know, I didn't want to spend a lot of money when I got into it because I didn't know if it'd last. But now that, you know, I pretty much owned it as a hobby, it's not, I don't see a need to upgrade, to invest more money when I've got a rig that works. You know, it does stick out a fair amount off the side of the helmet, but I found that with this pivot mount, you can really dial the angle in that you want. You can bring it in closer if you want more of the dashboard up. You know, you get much more functionality as far as adjustment versus, you know, you could screw this thing straight on. With this case, you could screw it directly to this yellow clip, but it would give you almost no adjustability. And the curve of this helmet, any lateral adjustment, and with the curve of this helmet, the mount is kind of out and pointing away from the direction you're wanting to go. So you can't really dial that back in if it was attached directly to that. So that, as they say, is that. That's my setup. I hope you enjoyed it, and got any questions, comment below. I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, ride them if you got them, and live long and prosper.